Welcome to the Celebrating Women podcast, co-hosted by Mandee Montana and Ashley Fisher, a podcast that celebrates women, their issues, their thoughts, their lives, conversations that celebrate their gifts, their talents, their courage. It's the Celebrating Women podcast. Presented by Hand and Stone Massage and Facial Spa in Tyler, Texas.
I'm here with Sarah, and it's that time of year, the gift-giving season, and our friends at Hand and Stone Massage and Facial Spa have some extra special Christmas promotions. So Sarah, tell us about the promotions.
So for our members, if you spend $200 or more, you do get a free massage or facial. And then as a guest, if you buy any spa package that automatically includes both the massage and facial, you get a free gift card that includes either a massage or facial.
I love that. So you can treat yourself this time of year because we all need a massage and facial.
Yes.
Let's face it. It's stressful and lovely at the same time. But then you're also going to get something that you can give to someone else, right?
Exactly.
And there's always a gift that keeps on giving at Hand and Stone, right?
There is. Yes,
What is
ma'am.
that?
So we do offer a month-to-month membership. It's only $69.95 a month. And then that does get you a massage or facial each month. And then there's not any long-term contract with that.
And those stack, right? So for example, if you're busy or out of town for a month, you can roll that over.
Yes. So those services never expire. They do continue to stay on your account until you're able to come in. And then you can do both a massage and a facial in the same visit.
I love that and have definitely taken advantage of it myself. As we're giving gifts this season, who are some people that would love to receive a massage or facial?
So people don't think about it, but there's always those housekeepers, dog groomers, your mother-in-law, even your father-in-law.
Oh, yeah.
So there are tons of different people that love to receive a massage or a facial.
So as you're doing your gift giving this season, consider stopping in to Hand and Stone to take advantage of this Christmas promotion. Sarah, how do we contact you?
So we are in the Village at Cumberland Shopping Center, located just behind Cava's. You can either stop by or call into the spa at 903-345-6051. Or you can even visit us online at handandstonetyler.com.
Welcome back to the Celebrating Women podcast. I am Ashley Fisher.
And I'm Mandee Montana. And today,
Hello.
Today, let's laugh a little. Today might be a little heavy. I'm just going to give a little bit of a disclaimer. We're going to talk about Britney Spears' book, her memoir. And Ashley and I actually both listened to the audiobook, and both of us had a similar reaction in that we were both just really sad.
Made us sad. Made us really sad.
Yeah. So,
And I binge listened to it. Like I woke up early this morning. I got woken up early by a kiddo. And I thought, well, might as well. And so I started and I listened straight through until about an hour and a half ago. And it's a lot.
it is a lot. I actually listened to it that exact same way about 6 weeks ago in one sitting because it was like I couldn't stop listening. I know you were you were kind of like, I'm going to get this done before the podcast.
This is how I got through school, by the way.
Yeah. But my reaction to it was like, I can't stop listening because I want to hear what she has to say next because, we're like her contemporaries, right? Like I think Britney's about 2 years older than I am. I think she just
was
turned
born
42, 81.
Uh-huh. Yeah. She was born in 81.
Yeah. So... And you're just a couple years behind me, like 5, I think. And so we grew up with her.
Yep.
And so much of what we know about her prior to listening to this book was
Just what the media told us.
what the media told us. Exactly. And so like hearing in her own words the story and her backstory, I mean, it was just like, I remember telling you when I was listening to it that my jaw was just like on the floor the whole time. Like
Yeah.
there were moments where I was driving while I was listening, and if anybody had pulled up next to me, they probably were like, what kind of news did this girl just
Wait,
get?
are
Like,
you
who is she
okay?
talking to? Yeah, like, is she okay? Because I was just floored and so sad for her, and I wanted to hug her.
Yeah. There are about a handful of celebrities that I have just taken I've just had such a draw to them in life. Whitney Houston was one, and it goes beyond their talent. It's just like on a personal level, like anytime I saw an interview with Whitney, I just like, I don't know. Anytime I thought about her, I would pray for her just because it was just that kind of thing. And Britney has been one of those. She was my first really big concert at Six Flags with the white leather pants with the pink knee patches. And when she came on the scene, she just changed so much on the landscape of pop music and all that kind of stuff. And she's just always been one where if I'm on Instagram, I'll go, I wonder how she's doing. And a few years ago, because she kind of went AWOL, it seemed, I was like, I wonder what Britney's doing. And I went to her Instagram and went, oh no, dear. And listening to her story, it's just there's so many layers to it. Number one, I think it's interesting that she only records herself the prologue, and it's very short. And she says, like, reliving this has been hard. That's why you're only going to hear me right here. And then Michelle Williams takes over and reads the rest of the book, and she does an absolutely brilliant job. I actually listened to the book today, like at 1.5 times speed.
I did too.
Michelle, like, actually sounds like Britney. Like when it's going fast, it gets a little more high pitched, but she, in some ways, I could tell she took on Britney's character in a way, but she did such a great job. There was actually one part of the book that I thought personally for Michelle might have been hard. And I don't know if you caught it, but it was when Britney was talking about when she was in the movie Crossroads, how she didn't realize it, but she got into method acting and how that character just kind of overtook her for a few months. And Britney talks about method acting a little bit and how people can get so lost in it. And my heart kind of broke for Michelle because I'm thinking of Heath. And I wondered if that was hard for her. I could just picture her like recording it and then going, I'm going to take a break, you know. But she really did a beautiful job.
She did.
In some ways, because Britney is so, when you hear her talk right now, she's so nervous and sped up. I feel like I was able to hear it better by listening to Michelle.
Oh, for sure.
You know?
Yeah, I don't know that after listening to the audiobook and thinking about what her life has been like for the last 20 years, essentially, for all of her adult life, really all of her life, but especially her adult life, I don't know that she needs to continue performing.
No.
You know, and I mean, she's an incredible performer, and I would love to see, I have seen her perform. I went to see her circus tour in 2009, but even then I felt like she was going through the motions. And now, having listened to her book, I know she was going through the motions of I mean, this is going to sound terrible, but it's like she was a puppet on strings for her father.
She was.
And it broke my heart to listen to this. And especially knowing, after listening to the beginning of the book, she starts with her childhood and then she kind of goes to current. When she talks about how difficult her childhood was, and really, her father was not a great guy.
No.
And it sounds like he came from a history of not great guys on his side of the family. And I have compassion and understanding for how sometimes those family traits and habits and things trickle down, and that's how abuse persists in families. So I don't mean to make him out to be like this villain. I'm sure he suffered as well. But, hopefully that can end with Britney, because the things that she endured, she had to be an adult as a child. She had to take on some very adult responsibilities early in her life, not just because she chose to be a child performer, but within her household, there were very adult things happening when she was 9 to, I think her mom was taking her drinking when she was 14. Yeah.
I was like, are you really? Because she talks about going on vacation and drinking daiquiris with her mom at a really young age.
Which, I mean, virgin daiquiris, sure, but they weren't virgin.
They weren't virgin.
Yeah.
And, that, of course, hindsight is always 20/20, but it's growing up in a household where the spouse and the dad was an alcoholic. It just kind of makes things that make you go,
Yeah, and then he becomes the conservator, and he's the person that has control over her life later.
Yeah.
It's just really concerning. That whole situation gosh, that could probably be several podcasts in and of itself. It was just an awful situation.
Yeah. And so for those that don't know, like for 13 years, for those that don't know, I know many know, but many may not. She was under a conservatorship, which is typically for people who are completely unable to take care of themselves mentally. They are unable. They're not capable of taking care of themselves. And the point that she made really well was how interesting it is that they found me unable to take care of myself, and yet I'm out touring the world and making a lot of money.
Millions of dollars for them. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'll tell you what still is a big question mark for me. And it's actually interesting timing that we're finally recording this today, because I don't know if you saw the little story popped up yesterday. A big question mark for me in this story is still Lynn Spears, her mom. Mm-hmm. And yesterday, the story started popping out. It's like pictures of Britney recently with her mom, like snuggling on the couch, head on her shoulder, and they've had a very publicly tumultuous relationship. And now it's like for Britney's 42nd birthday, because her birthday was December 2nd. For her 42nd birthday, she was with her mom, head on her shoulder.
Well, maybe her mom finally saw and heard her. I don't know.
My big question mark is and remains, where the hell was she in all of this? And I don't know.
I mean, just obviously this is all speculation because we don't know these people. We're on the outside looking in, but it could be that it sounded some from Britney's perspective from her book, like her mom might also have been a victim of abuse. Mm-hmm. And it sounds a lot like Britney's father could be pretty narcissistic. Mm-hmm. And it sounds a lot like he gaslit the heck out of Britney and probably did Lynn too.
Yeah.
And maybe several other people around him.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if Lynn was caught between a rock and a hard place, not knowing how to best exist, help her daughter, and survive. And survive. Yeah. Because also, we're talking about a family that had gone through some interesting economic changes during Britney's childhood. They were up and they were down. They were up and they were down financially. And then suddenly, Britney's making millions. Mm-hmm. And her parents are benefiting from that. They're on the payroll.
Yeah.
And so, money can do really terrible things to people.
Which he actually wrote himself a bigger check than she got for, I forget which tour it was. Which is just wild. It's just crazy that in place of your daughter, you could see a dollar sign. That's sad. I applaud her for the bravery it took to speak out and to even write her story. Mm-hmm. I also am just still very, very concerned for her, because if what they did is, all of that is factual, putting her on lithium and that kind of stuff, I don't mean this ugly. I feel like you can see the toll that that's taken on her mentally.
And physically.
The Britney that we saw back in her prime, how bright and smart and with it she was, is not the Britney that you see now.
No, and she's been mentally abused, though, for 13 years.
That's the thing.
It's like she's been caged. Mm-hmm. I mean, truly been caged in this conservatorship and being if you think of the worst possible scenario of a circus performer, like a performing monkey. Mm-hmm. Yep. That's, to me, that's what they did to Britney.
She was the human version of that.
She was the human version of that. And, even as recent as her residency in Las Vegas, she talks about how her dad had her on a diet where she was eating canned
chicken
vegetables and chicken.
Yeah.
And
she was begging for French fries and a burger from her personal chef. And the chef told her, "No, ma'am, I'm sorry. I have to listen to your dad."
I mean,
what the hell?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, she's also performing and dancing and stuff. I mean, your body needs the level that she's performing, dancing, working out. And then she was also teaching children at one point too. Like, you need more food.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and she talks about how even at that, she gained weight. And that's because her body went into survival mode.
Exactly.
Her body literally thought, oh, you're on a deserted island. You're dying. Let me protect you. And so...
It truly is heartbreaking. I mean, if you are already depressed this holiday season, I do not recommend. I do not recommend if you are in a place where you have the space to hold compassion for her, and are curious, then but I would say, have some healthy boundaries for yourself. If you're an empathetic person, somebody that is, easily takes on other people's emotions.
Yeah.
Beware.
Yes.
Because it is really, really heavy. And, Ashley and I have shared our love for NSYNC. Of course, Justin's in the book. Britney and Justin were together for a long time. And she goes into detail about some of it. Some of it is, just excruciatingly heartbreaking It's just
really
heartbreaking.
is. And, Mandee and I have been talking for weeks about doing this episode because we both, were interested in her story and wanted to talk about it. There's a reason why I put off for so long reading or listening to the book. I bought the physical book and then it was sat in my car for a month and then I took it back. And then this morning I just did the Audible and, sorry, Britt. I wanted you to have the profit. But, just with personal things going on, I've just known, like, I've told Mandee, like, this is not the week for me to listen to that book. I can't do it. I cannot add her stuff onto my own stuff. And today, I was getting my nails done and listening to the end of the book, and the manicurist kept saying, relax. And I'm like, I'm trying. But, I'll tell you one of the things that was a big surprise to me.
What?
That was like a total, was not expecting that. Because I remember the interview with Britney when she was really young, and they were talking about, she was being interviewed about, of course, boys and all this stuff, and she came out about being a virgin. And I remember going, as a teenager going, wow, isn't that amazing? She actually lost her virginity at 14 years old, 15 years old, to a boy at her school.
Yeah.
It wasn't Justin. For so many years, we have thought, oh, well, Justin's the one that took it from her,
Yeah.
And that was I think the one revelation that I went, oh, what?
Well, and then did you see, I know you're on Instagram as often as I am, so you probably have the reel kept popping up about Oprah's interview with her, where she basically said, they asked Britney about, you've publicly said that you were a virgin or whatever. And Britney was like, oh, yeah. And she kind of was going along with the thing because she knew that's what her publicists and people were advising her to do. And Oprah's like, but if you decide to change your mind, you don't have to make that publicly known. You know that, right?
Yeah.
Which I appreciated that Oprah gave her that permission, and she did too.
She did. She talked about it in the book, and I kind of thought, well, good for Oprah, because Oprah has a whole lot of cringy moments with people that have come out come out recently. But I did appreciate that she said you don't have to shout that out for the whole world. That's not their.
And you
business.
and I grew up, especially here in East Texas. Purity culture was. Brittany's from Louisiana, not that far down the road from us. It was such a thing, man. Such a. Gosh, I don't even know how to get into it. That's probably a whole other episode some other time.
Because that's so much my story.
Yeah, but it's so much of our generation's story. That time period. And especially here, it was. There are so many people that it was a dividing line culturally and socially in high school, whether or not. And people were shamed if they were not making that choice, if they were choosing to have sex, in high school or whatever. And as an adult now in my 40s, I don't have children, but I'm looking at this situation and going, abstinence, yes, and people are going to be doing this anyway. So, like, why shouldn't we be educating them about it? Maybe should we talk about this a little bit more?
Let's talk about it a little bit
instead of just saying don't do it, because it was happening. Clearly, it was happening to Britney too.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
And it didn't sound like was in a home where productive conversations were happening around.
No. Yeah.
You know, what is a healthy way to have intercourse and to experience love and relationship? And it didn't sound like she was seeing, you know, great examples of that either.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, many of us don't have those. I mean, that's is what it is.
Well,
but
we, you know, especially, you know, I'm 35, you're 40. Like, we were raised by a generation that sex was like, we don't talk about that.
Right. Right.
And so we learned a lot by movies and by peers and books and conversations. And, you know, Bradley and I were like poster children for purity in our youth group. And we have been able to enjoy the benefits of having been each other's only one. And that's a sweet thing that I would love for my children to experience. However, the way that we talk about that subject is going to be drastically different than how we were spoken to about it, because it was made way too much a part of our identity, especially mine. And this was a big theme I felt like in Britney's book, was how different it is for men and women.
Yeah, I noticed that theme too.
It was a big one. And I really applaud her for taking the lid off of that in a way, because she did it beautifully. She did it so well by just illustrating how this is what was going on with her and this is what was going on for like Justin. And yet here's how she was perceived and here's how he was perceived.
I'm so glad you brought this up, because I do want to like peel back a layer or two on this if we can.
Yeah.
Because, you know, we were young when they were being glitz and glamored all over the media, attending all of these award shows together as couples, and then their breakup. I think I was like like my freshman year in college, I think was when they broke up and Cry Me a River came out from Justin Justified, his first album. And what's interesting is what I remember about Britney and what I remember about Justin during that time period is I remember Britney being scandalous. I remember her wearing...
She was the hoe.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember, like, as much as I enjoyed her VMA performance, where she went from the Rolling Stones, like, tuxedo and hat to the sparkly outfit. I mean, it's phenomenal performance. Phenomenal.
To this day, I think it's my favorite ever from anybody.
Yeah. I mean, I've got chills just thinking about it again. I mean, she just blew the doors off the thing.
Yep.
But as a woman, especially at that time, it was not well received. The next day, all of the media attention was... Britney's naked, she's ruining America, ruining the children of America by being naked on stage or whatever. And where the boys, when they perform, they can be doing who knows what with who knows who.
And how many sexy girls behind them.
Right.
So nobody ever talks about that.
No, I don't think so much as the boy bands, yes, had some more of the rappers and all that group, like Jay-Z and that whole bunch at that time. They had a ton of that situation. And I'm not trying to make it sound like the boy bands were better. They had them behind the scenes. I'm just saying they might not have been on stage with them at the time. And I think that's what was happening, was a lot of their shenanigans were happening away from the cameras. And it's just downplayed because boys are being boys. But girls are not allowed to, you know, express their sexuality, express their femininity, and be bold.
And then again, and this goes back to me to like the puppet thing, her virginity. When she entered the scene, she was not a virgin.
Right.
But her publicist made it an issue, which she says in the book, which I was like, hats off to you, girlfriend. She goes, that took the focus away from my talent.
Amen.
From what I was there for.
Right.
It made it about something different. And it's so interesting to me how the push from a publicist went against them, because then when she's just being a creative and showing off what she had, she was a beautiful woman. She still is. But by being just fully her, then it's like, oh, you're ruining the little girls of America because you're being too sexy. And I remember when Toxic came out, oh man, that video, like, I remember even kind of struggling going, oh, she's getting too salacious now because she's supposed to be this virginic, like, role model. And it's like, no, she was never supposed to. That's not why she was there. She was there to share her talent.
That's probably one of my favorite videos from her. And I love that song. And here's the other thing that got lost in all of that is how much success she had. When she was talking about the different records that she broke and her album sales and the Grammys, and I don't remember any of that.
I don't either. I don't remember her. I do not remember her getting a Grammy at all.
I don't either. And that's a problem.
Yes, and like
that's
when
big problem.
When she was in the throes of that conservatorship and she won all those Moon Men at the MTV Awards, don't remember that.
I don't either, because we weren't talking about that.
No.
You know, or I say we. The media wasn't talking about that, so we weren't talking about that. And I get frustrated by that whole, like, this feminist part of me that, like, rises up. I got really ruffled listening to Britney talk about all of this, because she was a force to be reckoned with, and yet she had all of this beautiful vulnerability that got exploited, and then she became shamed for being herself. And it broke my heart so much, because I'm thinking, okay, if this happens to Britney, how many other women is this happening to? Like, to have that much success and that much power, and yet still be, like, crumble from within situation.
Yeah.
Like, who else is this happening to?
She was relegated to her sexuality, which I stand really strong in what I'm about to say. If you find your soul identity in your sexuality, you're missing so many pieces of the puzzle.
Sure.
So many pieces of the puzzle. And I think that it's sad that a woman that talented and that smart was relegated to her body and her sexual experience.
Yeah, I agree. And then when you find out some of the other things that were happening behind the scenes with her and Justin in the book, it's just like,
yeah.
I don't even know how to talk about it.
We need to, so spoiler alert. If you want to read the book and you want to be surprised still, you need to probably stop the episode here.
Yeah.
But a lot of it has come out in the media and different things by now. So like, I knew about this before I read or heard the book, but she talks about how in love she was with him. I mean, really in love with him. And
his whole family, like,
yes.
His family was more of a family to her than her own.
They got pregnant and he wasn't ready to be a dad. And so, what I knew that I had heard that she had chosen an abortion. I did not realize until today that both Justin, the only people that knew about this abortion were Justin and her, like, not manager, but her assistant, Felicia, who was like a second mom to her. I mean, she was like her shadow. And it breaks my heart that Felicia allowed this in some ways to happen. But they didn't go to a doctor. They didn't go to a hospital. She had an at-home abortion. She took a couple of pills, and then she was on the bathroom floor in excruciating pain. And she talks about how Justin came in and, like, laid down next to her and just tried to be there for her. And I'm just thinking, then when you go down the timeline of how soon after that he pieced out.
I know.
It's not cool. And I know he was young and stupid and, you know, maybe would hopefully change some things being an adult now and a dad.
Well, he's had to apologize for a lot in the last few years.
Yeah.
But, and I'm not trying to shame him for this by any means, but I imagine it was really hard on him too. And
they were both raised in the South, Christian faith, you know.
I have a friend from high school, and I'm not going to name names, but I have a friend from high school that she got married early, and they got pregnant really soon, and their baby passed really early, and their marriage didn't survive.
Yeah.
Because it was just so tragic that they didn't know how to move forward together after enduring so much pain. Mm-hmm. And so I guess I'm looking through knowing that situation and loving my friend, and God, it was so hard to watch her go through that. I can see how going through something as traumatic as that for the two of them could part them, you know?
Yeah.
And two, that like they were young. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, that's hard to deal with at any age.
Yep.
But they were like, what, 20?
Yeah.
I mean,
babies.
And two, they've both been performing and behaving as adults in a lot of ways, but there's probably a ton of immaturity out of balance, right? Mm-hmm. Because of that. There are ways that they probably did not mature emotionally because they were maturing like in their performing and in business as business people. And so I can imagine it was really hard for both of them. And it seems to me that's when things started to go downhill for Britney as far as mental health in the book, when she's telling her story. To me, that was kind of a turning point for her, where she was like, the loss of the child, the loss of that relationship and that love, and the extended family that she had been a part of too. Like, I think her hopes and dreams were centered around all of that.
Yeah.
And then it very painfully changed.
Yeah. Yeah. And she, you know, talking about how, you know, after that breakup, how he essentially broke up with her over a text message that she read in her trailer and then had to go out and sing and dance. And how, you know, the next holiday that came up, or the next Christmas season, how she had always done holidays with his family, that they were her family. So you have this young girl who's nothing but a song and a dance to everyone around her, even her own family. And then the people that she found solace in and family with are gone because he just decided to be done.
Yeah.
And I think the implication that he began that distance because his Justified album was coming, and it sounded like, at least from her perspective, that he had a very distinct angle that he was going to come in with.
Publicly. A way to sell that record.
That makes it all the more hard, you know?
Yeah. And I know there's like three sides to every story, right?
Yeah.
There's hers, his, and the truth somewhere. Yeah. But it makes sense from her perspective.
It does. It does. And I, you know, and then like...
And he was so marketable. I mean, here's the thing. When you look at things from a financial perspective, and the little bit of like perspective I have from being in radio and being around music for a while, there are some people, some celebrities, some bands, some that are just more marketable than others. And at that particular time, there wasn't much of a bigger star on the planet than Justin Timberlake. He was making a lot of people a lot of money.
Yep. Which I'm sure, giving him some benefit of the doubt. Can you imagine the pressure?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And that's what I'm saying is like, he's being given direction too, just like she was.
Right.
So did he make all those decisions himself? Probably not.
Doesn't it make you wonder, like, because hearing her story and the timeline of how she broke into the business and how very young she was, it makes me wonder if they don't, in some ways, if these like big managers and all this stuff, if they don't seek out these young kids because they're so pliable because they're so moldable.
For sure.
Which kind of feels like predator and prey. You know, it kind of feels like, it feels abusive.
Exploitive.
Yeah. Because they're good grief. Their frontal cortex has not been fully developed, and they're just going along because they have a dream.
Well, and then they've got a dream, and then they've got parents who are being influenced. Obviously, the parents love their children giving parents full benefit of the doubt here. They love their children. They want to see them be successful. They want to see them follow their dreams. And it's an opportunity for the family to potentially make a lot of money too. And
because she talked about how poor they were,
Yeah.
you know. I thought it was interesting too, talking about, you know, the house that she bought in Kentwood for her family, the house that she bought in Destin as like a vacation home, and she kept sprinkling in there how Jamie Lynn, it was like, why did she give us a house?
I know.
The one moment that made me laugh out loud was her coming and just talking very, very plainly about her sister. And I don't know much about Jamie Lynn. I remember her when she was on the little Zoe show on Nickelodeon. And of course, I've seen her recently in Sweet Magnolias, which I love that show. And she was on Dancing with the Stars for a hot second. I feel like Jamie Lynn, when I look at her, because she was on that Special Forces show or Special something recently. I feel like when I look at her, I see somebody who is just floundering and desperate to prove herself, which I'm sure has links and anchors to many different things and reasons and all of that.
Sure.
But I thought it was kind of funny. Brittany's like, she did not hold back.
No, she didn't hold back. And I'm like you. I don't know much about Jamie Lynn other than the like stuff I've read in gossip columns over the years, which obviously there's maybe some grain of truth to it, but whatever. I mean, we have, you and I both have siblings, don't have sisters, but there is a little bit of that sister rivalry situation happening between them, I feel like. And also too, I think what I took from Brittany's perspective was that she wondered why her sister wasn't
there for her.
Yeah, because she had tried so hard to be there for her sister and to provide for her. And she called her a flat out brat a couple of times. And I thought it's
kind of funny.
I thought it was funny too. I guess it was when she was little, when she was talking about what a beautiful child she was, because Brittany's quite a bit older than Jamie Lynn. And she was just this beautiful child, and that she basically ruled the roost and was very demanding, and how
Spoiled.
She basically told her mom what to do and when, and Lynn just did it. And Brittany was like, I mean, what the hell? This is not what you did for me.
She literally says, quote, are you going to let this little witch talk to you that way?
Yeah. I laughed at that too. I was like, oh my gosh. But, and yeah, are you?
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I have a lot of different thoughts, but I walk away. It's such a clear illustration too of what success can look like to anybody else on paper. She is the epitome of success. And I'll tell you what got me more than anything, that I'm kind of having to keep at an arm's length. I can't let myself go too far into this. But when she talks about how when she married Kevin and she has these two babies back to back, she had a 3-month-old and then she got pregnant. Like, good Lord have mercy. And how when the oldest was 17 months and the youngest was 5 months, how she was kept from seeing those babies. That is enough to send anybody off the deep end.
Yeah. I didn't understand. I mean, at that time in my world, I was on the radio station. I was full-time in radio and had been for like 2 or 3 years. And I remember like Entertainment Tonight was doing something called Brit Watch. And it was like, what has crazy Britney Spears done today? It was not long after she shaved her head.
Yeah.
Which some of that was in response to not being able to see her children.
Yeah.
But none of that's what was talked about.
No, she's
it
just
was
crazy.
Just her crazy behavior. We didn't know the backstory of what all was going on. And there, like you said, there's a lot to unpack there, and we don't have to spend much time on it. But what you said a minute ago, right before you mentioned that about success on paper, there's a difference between success and fulfillment, right? And I think a lot of us, especially in American culture, are taught to strive for success, when what we're really looking for is fulfillment. And that's a much broader thing. I mean, that's spiritual, that's mental health, that's, that's relational. It's not just financial success. It encompasses, life.
Yeah.
And I just really want that for her. I want her to be able to find a sense of fulfillment in her life because, like you said, she has been at the pinnacle of like the music industry's success and yet not really felt fulfilled.
No. And I hate that. And another big question mark for, is it's still unclear to me after listening why it is that Kevin was able to take off with the two boys. So that to me, there's always room for there's stuff we don't know.
Yeah, we're just getting her perspective.
But the part where she was forced into things or kept from things, kind of locked away in a tower, that part to me is very tragic, I
don't know how much of this I want to get into on here, but I have a hard time understanding how it was so easily done to her, knowing situations of other adults that are mentally unstable. And yet because they're adults are unable to be committed somewhere because it's like it has to be their choice unless they are incapable of handling things. But like Britney was handling things aside from, a couple of aberrations stemming around not being able to see her children, which at that young of an age, I can understand why she would be off the deep end over that.
I would go off the deep end. If I was being kept from my children, that would be enough.
Well, and then
especially at those little ages, man.
And the paparazzi surrounding her was just absolute insanity. I mean, it's
scary.
Scary. Yes, truly, truly scary. Like, I mean, Princess Diana.
Yeah.
Britney could have died so many times. Those babies potentially could have.
And that's the thing too. The mama bear that comes out that she like had to constantly be aware of and to be nitpicked as a first time mom, to be nitpicked at that global of a level is just, and again, she talks about that and kind of sheds light on that, I felt like really, really well. She's like, if you watch in this one video that's been criticized for years, she said, the heel of my shoe turned. She goes, but you'll notice I'm carrying a glass of water in one hand and my baby on my hip, and not a single one of those was disturbed. And yet it's just leapt on. And I mean, they fed on that like a pack of wolves. And I cannot imagine living a life where you have such a microscope on you that every little thing that you do is so criticized and people are just ugly. They're just mean about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like she's fair game because she's a celebrity. I don't know if you watched, did you watch Beckham on Netflix? There's sort of contemporaries, right? Because Victoria Beckham, Posh Spice, David Beckham, soccer star, they were kind of hitting fame about the same time as Britney. As they started having children, they dealt with a lot of that too. And then, of course, it's still an issue, but it's like, that's got to stop. And I don't know if it's getting better, like if things are changing, like the legalities of it, but like, am I interested in celebrity gossip? Yes, I am. But I don't want it to be at the detriment of someone's life or their children's lives.
No.
I'd rather not. I'd rather them be on Instagram and tell me what they want me to know.
Yeah. Well, and I think, back to your point on, how could something like this happen to her when there are people out there that like need to be committed, but there's so much red tape. And I think it has everything to do with money.
That's true. There's a lot more money involved. You're right.
And I think that so many people saw an opportunity in that situation to get, and they took it. And it's unfortunate. I hope that I read here recently, just saw, as you're scrolling, you'll have little headlines. The other thing that I saw about Britney was that she is, she spent a lot of her money since getting out of that conservatorship. And I hope that she's not, I don't also want to see her put out on the street and broke because she just didn't spend her money well.
Well, hopefully, I know these book sales have been phenomenal for her. Hopefully.
Well, that's what I've heard she spent.
She spent that?
Yeah.
Oh, well,
yeah.
I was hoping she was going to be wise with that, but.
Yeah. And I don't know. It's just such a, nobody will ever really know all of the ins and outs of this entire situation. We could sit here and throw out all kinds of things and I try to remain in a place that's not judgmental, just because I know there's a whole lot that we don't know. But I can still have a lot of compassion for her perspective and what she has clearly been through. And I really do hope that she has better days ahead.
I do too. I want her to find a sense of peace and fulfillment, whatever that looks like, whether there's money involved or not. Even if she is just running a bike shop on a beach somewhere,
Right.
you know, like living a very simple life away from everybody and nobody knows what happened to her. She just goes off into the sunset and is living happily away from the rest of us. I mean, I could see her doing something like that. It's, you know, it's like looking at Taylor Swift, you know, she seems to have the right people around her in order to have developed a very strong business sense, as well as keeping herself healthy, mentally healthy, somehow physically and mentally healthy. Again, I'm sure there's a lot that we don't know. However, she seems to be with it, and she seems to do a really good job of taking care of her fans. And the little bit of interaction we had from radio, her team was phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I hate that Britney didn't have that around her, because I think that she could have had the same level of success that we're seeing Taylor have over a long period of time.
Absolutely.
If she had had a different group of people around her.
I think she had the exact same grit, the same smarts, the same all of that. I think that she just had, and it just goes to show you, like we tell our kids, like, be careful who you allow in your inner circle. That inner circle is everything.
Even with your family.
Yeah, 100%.
You know? So I think I've been thinking about that a lot, the context, you know, the difference between the two of them, and like what little bit that I know from watching a couple of documentaries and then just being around the business and stuff. Your team is everything. And in life, really, it's the same who you choose to surround yourself with.
Yep.
And what your boundaries are with, you know, certain family members. You can love them from a distance if you need to.
And, you know, you've got to keep your bar set high. We all want to be seen and we all want to be loved, but you can't want love and attention to the point where you will just take the bar down and let anybody in. You just can't. You just cannot. Because truly, that's the difference here. Taylor Swift could have easily been Britney, and Britney could have easily been Taylor Swift. And I do think 100% the difference is who was around them.
I didn't expect to go there today, but
I didn't either.
It's just something that's been crossing my mind, because Taylor's having so much success right now, and she's really been smart about a lot of things, like re-recording her albums, which, did you know that that's because Kelly Clarkson tweeted her and suggested it?
No, good job,
Yes.
Kelly. That's
Well, I
awesome.
randomly saw it on social media. It's that Taylor Swift had sent Kelly Clarkson flowers when Taylor's version of 1989 came out. And then somebody had posted that it's because when she was able to get her masters back,
Yeah.
Kelly tweeted, like, I mean, girl, you could just re-record them. I mean, it's your music. Re-record them and re-release them as your version.
That's fantastic.
And so each album that she's released, she's evidently sent Kelly flowers.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that.
I do
love
too.
That.
And I love that they're standing up for each other, you know, and that women are taking care of each other. We've got to continue to do that. And I know that's part of what we've talked about from the very beginning of this, but like, is there going to be some level of competition sometimes? Yeah, but let's collaborate and celebrate each other more, and let the competition be with ourselves, like individually. Like, let's just get better.
Am I better than I was yesterday?
Yes.
Yep. And set your bar high. That, I think that is like one of those things that, like, I know I'm going to be preaching to my kids over and over and over and over and over again, because I do think you wind up being the sum, you know, the total, that sum total of like your 5 closest friends. It's so true.
It is true.
It is so true. So we love you, Britney.
Yes.
You're probably never going to hear this, but we do love you.
Yeah. And we want really good things for you.
Yep.
The Celebrating Women podcast wants to hear from you. Email us a voice message to celebratingwomenpodcast@gmail.com. We would love to hear your story or the story of an incredible woman you know. Become part of the conversation on social media. Facebook.com/Celebrating Women Podcast. On Instagram, search Celebrating Women Podcast. The Celebrating Women Podcast has been presented by Hand and Stone Massage and Facial Spa in Tyler, Texas. Book your appointment today. Stop by the spa in Cumberland Shopping Center or online at handandstonetyler.com. The Celebrating Women Podcast is created and hosted by Mandee Montana and Ashley Fisher. Support the show for as little as $3 per month at celebratingwomenpodcast.buzzsprout.com or visit our show notes. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to subscribe to the Celebrating Women Podcast.